In a Seattle storm that hid the world in rain, a boy in a wheelchair sat alone, forgotten, until a waitress with nothing to her name gave him a warm meal and a smile, unaware his billionaire father was watching, ready to change her fate. The rain in Seattle that night was a monster. Not the usual mist, but a pounding storm that soaked everything and turned streets into rivers. Neon signs flickered, their colors bleeding into puddles, and the wind screamed like it was angry. Outside the Blue Lantern Diner, a boy sat in a wheelchair, alone, a thin blanket slipping off his legs. He looked like a shadow the city had forgotten. Sophie Lane, 27, was wiping down tables inside, her shift almost done. Through the diner's foggy window she saw him, a shape barely there. She squinted, thinking it was a trick of the light, but when she wiped the glass, her stomach dropped. He wasn't moving. She dropped her rag and ran outside, rain slapping her face, sneakers splashing. Kneeling by him, she saw he was maybe 9, his lips pale, his jacket dripping. "Hey kid, what are you doing out here?" she asked, voice soft but worried. "Waiting for my dad," he mumbled. "He said he'd come back." No one was around, no car, no lights, just the storm. "You're freezing," Sophie said. "Come inside, get warm." He nodded, eyes heavy. She pushed his wheelchair into the diner, settling him by a heater. Grabbing a dry towel, she wrapped it around him, then ducked into the kitchen. The cook was gone, but Sophie knew her way around. In minutes, she was back with a golden grilled cheese sandwich and a steaming mug of tomato soup. "It's on me," she said, grinning. "Secret recipe." The boy, Leo, stared at the food like it was a gift he didn't deserve. He took a bite, cheese stretching, and whispered, "This is the best thing ever." Sophie sat across from him, pulling out her sketch pad. She drew a spaceship shaped like a wheelchair, a kid soaring past stars. Leo leaned in, eyes wide. "I love space," he said. "Captain Leo, you're on a mission," she teased. For 20 minutes they talked about planets, rockets, and eating snacks in space. Sophie laughed, Leo smiled, and the diner felt alive. Across the street, in a black SUV, Julian Reed watched. He was a billionaire, CEO of Reed Innovations, a tech empire that ruled Seattle. He'd left Leo outside for a quick call with investors after his nurse bailed. He thought it'd be fine. He never expected a waitress to pull his son from the rain, to feed him, to draw with him like he was her own. Julian's life was a fortress. He'd lost his wife Ava to cancer years ago, and since then he'd locked everything down. His penthouse high above the city, his company untouchable, his heart shut tight. But watching Sophie with her worn apron and kind eyes give Leo warmth and joy, Julian felt something break open. Hope, wonder, maybe even guilt. He called his assistant, Naomi. "Go to the diner. Jeans, no fancy stuff. Don't let her know who I am." Inside, Sophie handed Leo a cookie wrapped in a napkin. "Come back, okay?" "I promise," Leo said, holding it like treasure. Naomi rushed in, acting like Leo's aunt. "Thanks for watching him," she said. "Anytime," Sophie said, waving as Leo left. Leo looked back. "Bye, Sophie." "Thank you." Julian stepped out, kneeling by his son. "You have fun?" "She gave me food for free, Dad," Leo said. "Just 'cause I was cold." "Kindness doesn't cost a thing," Julian said, staring at the diner's glow. To Naomi he said, "Find out who she is." "Everything." Julian's penthouse was stunning, with views of Seattle's lights and water. But that night it felt cold. He tried to work, but his mind was stuck on the diner. Leo wrapped in a towel, Sophie's laugh. She'd made his son smile, something Julian hadn't seen since Ava died. Ava's memory lived in the paintings on the walls, the storybooks in Leo's room. She'd read to him every night, her voice full of magic. Julian couldn't do that. He was always working, always distant. But tonight, Leo was different, chatting about Sophie, asking for a sketchbook to draw spaceships. Julian hadn't seen him so happy in years. He called Naomi. "Got her name?" "Sophie Lane," she said. 27, lives in a tiny apartment. No trouble, no college, raised by her grandma who's gone. Works at the diner, draws for kids' books. She makes pictures of kids in wheelchairs, one looks like Leo. She doesn't know who he is? Nope. Hardly uses the internet. That hit Julian. Sophie's kindness was pure, not for likes or fame. "I want to meet her," he said. "No suits, no drivers. Just me." "Feeling guilty?" Naomi asked. "No," Julian said, looking at a photo of Ava and Leo, their smiles warm, his already fading. Leo smiled. "I need to know how she did it." The next night, Julian waited outside the diner. The rain was softer, streetlights glowing through mist. Sophie came out, hoodie up, backpack on, looking tired but real. "Sophie?" he said. She turned wary. "Yeah. I'm Julian Reed. Leo's dad." Her eyes widened. "Is he okay?" "More than okay. He won't stop talking about you." Sophie shrugged. "I just gave him food. He needed it. That's why it's special." She didn't say anything. Julian said, "Can we get coffee? I want to talk." She studied him. He wasn't pushy, just worn out like her. "Okay," she said. "There's a cafe down the street." They walked quietly. At the cafe, Julian paid for her coffee. Sitting across from him, she said, "You're not what I expected. Most people aren't." He pulled out her sketchbook. "Leo had this. From the diner." She blushed. "He liked space, so I drew for him." Julian opened it to a picture. A boy in a wheelchair flying over Saturn, a robot dog beside him. "These are more than drawings. They're hope." "Just stories," Sophie said. "Leo's been sick since he was 2, hospitals, doctors. You gave him something in 10 minutes I've never seen. You saw him as a kid, not a patient." He slid a card across. "My company's starting a project. Stories and tech for kids, especially ones like Leo. We need someone to lead it." "You." "I'm nobody," Sophie said. "No degree, no tech skills. I'm broke. I want your kindness, not your resume." She shook her head. "This stuff doesn't happen to me. Maybe it's time it did." Rain tapped the window. Sophie held the card, unsure. "What's the catch?" "One thing," Julian said. "Don't stop being you." "I'll think about it," she said. But they both knew she'd say yes. Sophie's first day at Reed Innovations felt wrong. The building was all glass and shine, people rushing with fancy gadgets. She went to the 23rd floor to a new place called the Story Lab. Bare walls, new desks, big windows. On a glass wall, someone wrote, "Every kid deserves to be their own hero." She'd said that to Julian. He'd remembered. He met her there, casual but serious. "Ready?" She nodded, scared. The first days were tough. Meetings, tech stuff, new people. Some were nice, others cold. She heard whispers. "A waitress? No degree? Why her?" She felt out of place but kept going. She'd been counted out before. Julian checked on her every week, making her feel she belonged. Naomi helped, teaching her how to deal with office drama. "You're here because you made Leo feel real," Naomi said. "That's bigger than any degree." Leo was her favorite partner. They met twice a week, creating the Moon Garden, a starry world where kids with disabilities were heroes. Leo loved Captain Leo, a kid with a flying chair and a robot cat named Orbit. They laughed a lot, their joy loud in the quiet office. Sophie started Saturday Story Hour, a free program for kids with disabilities to draw and tell stories. Julian loved it. It kicked off at the Seattle Public Library with Sophie leading, bringing diner cookies. Kids had fun. Parents sent thank you notes. Schools asked her to speak. Sophie felt like she was making a difference, not just surviving but shining. Her story got big. News called her Waitress to Story Leader. Some made it sound like she was saved. She wasn't. She chose this. But fame brought trouble. People at work got mean, snarky comments, skipped invites. One guy, Greg Toland, said in a meeting, "Not every project needs to be a tearjerker. Let's do real work, not stunts." Julian shut him down. "Greg, talk to me if you've got a problem. Don't waste time." Later, Sophie said, "Maybe I don't belong here." Julian looked at her. People who change things always get doubted. Keep going. That night, Sophie walked home in the rain, scared but strong. She knew she belonged. She wondered if the world was ready for her. The Moon Garden became a website where kids made their own worlds and heroes. One day Leo said, "I want to help kids feel brave like you helped me." "You're already doing it," Sophie said, eyes watery. Then trouble came. Naomi showed up at Sophie's office. "Moon Garden stuff, art, stories, leaked to a rival Dreamforge. It looks like it came from your account." Sophie's heart sank. "I didn't do it." "I know," Naomi said. "Someone's setting you up." Julian called her to his office. "Did you share anything? Even by accident?" "No," Sophie said. "Never." "I trust you," he said, but he looked worn out. "I need to be sure." "Let me help find who did it," she said. They worked late, checking files with Naomi. Sophie remembered Tom from legal, who'd visited Story Hour, asking about the project. Naomi found his ID in Sophie's files, used on another floor. Then they tied it to Greg Toland, who'd sent the info to Dreamforge to make Sophie fail. At midnight, Julian fired Greg. To Sophie he said, You didn't quit. I almost did. You believed in me, she said. The next day the company made Sophie head of the story lab. The leak faded, the moon garden grew. Sophie hired 3 new designers from tough backgrounds, giving them a shot like she'd gotten. Leo kept her grounded, saying at story hour, "Heroes don't give up, even when people don't believe them." Years later at a big Seattle hall, Leo, now a young man, spoke to a quiet crowd. "I thought my wheelchair was a cage," he said. "Then a grilled cheese sandwich changed my life." People laughed. He went on, "I was 9, alone in the rain, invisible. Sophie Lane saw me. She didn't ask questions. She fed me, made me laugh, made me feel I mattered." Backstage, Sophie stood with Julian, tears falling. Leo talked about the moon garden, how kids like him became stars. "Kindness doesn't need a spotlight," he said. "Just an open door." The crowd cheered loud. At the party after, Julian and Sophie sat together. "He's so free now," Sophie said. "You showed him how," Julian said. "You built something incredible." "He was always incredible," Sophie said. "I just helped him believe it." Julian smiled. "You helped me too." Sophie thought of her grandma wrapping sandwiches, saying kindness never runs out. What she built wasn't luck, it was her heart, her need to make others feel seen. The moon garden grew huge, reaching hospitals, schools, even kids stuck in bed. Sophie traveled, taught, listened. She became someone who believed in kids before they believed in themselves. Julian slowed down, painting again, hanging out with Leo just because. Sophie signed book deals, met big names, but still wore her diner apron at shelters. One rainy day at the old diner spot, she saw a girl give her mittens to a woman on the street. No one cheered, but Sophie saw. Kindness didn't need a crowd, just someone to notice. It all started with a sandwich, a boy in the rain, and a waitress who cared. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was real, and anyone could do it. Kindness spreads. You don't need a degree to change lives. Trust comes from showing up. Stories let people be heard. Sophie didn't know her life would change that night. But by helping Leo, she helped herself. And thousands more. Your kindness could start the next story. So what's your move? Be the person who sees someone in the rain. Share a smile, a moment, a sandwich. You never know who's watching or how far it'll go. Keep telling stories that lift people up. Keep believing in the power of small acts. Because one kind choice can change everything. Let's make more stories like this, together.